Hello, today I want to show you this drawing of Freddie Mercury performing on stage, and I used a whole bunch of stuff as usual, mostly charcoal, but I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later. Now let's have a look at the drawing process. So the late Freddie Mercury of the band Queen. First I had to pick the right reference photo, and after consulting a couple of people I decided to do this one from the Live Aid concert in the 80s. I didn't really have to do much with the composition because the reference photo is pretty good, but I decided to do a slightly lighter background. And by the way, I'm doing this with vine charcoal right now and blending it with Tutilian and brushes. Like I said, in the reference photo the background is pretty dark, and I didn't want it to be quite as dark because I didn't want the dark background to compete with the darkest areas of my drawing, like his hair for example and some other details. So I decided to make a slightly lighter dark background, and I thought that vine charcoal would be perfect for it. So you can see me now covering much of the left side of the background with vine charcoal and kind of blending it in and spreading it around with brushes and Tutilians. Now the good thing about vine charcoal is at the same time is a bad thing about vine charcoal, and that's the fact that it can be moved very easily. So if I spoil anything by any chance, I'll be able to fix it pretty easily, but I have to keep in mind how easy it is to move. That's why I made sure to work gradually from left to right so that I can avoid smudging as much as possible. Now as for his hair, I did a little bit of work with a charcoal pencil, and a charcoal pencil is made out of compressed charcoal, and it's a lot darker than vine charcoal, as you can see. This is exactly what I wanted, because I wanted his dark hair to stand out against the background a little bit more. And now I also have to clean up the edges between his hands and his body and the background. But like I said, I did the hair, but I didn't really pull the highlights just yet. I'll do that a little bit later when I start working on the face. Right now I am working on his hand and his right arm, and I'm kind of trying to create enough contrast so that that ring would stand out. Here, as you can see, I'm working on his face using a charcoal pencil, and I added a few more details. So again, I'm back at this hand, and hands can be a little bit tricky to draw because sometimes if you oversimplify them it can ruin your drawing. Anyway, I'm shading the face with vine charcoal, and later I'll be adding some more detail to it. At first it looks kind of crappy, but I do that to lay down some of the basic values first, and then I can start refining the shape of the face. Here, as you can see, I'm cleaning up the edge of the face so that it stands out against the background. And I'm adding some more value to the forehead and some other details on the face. Here I used a pencil eraser to add some highlights on his forehead because of the sweat and the lights, and I also added some highlights on the hair. I'm actually doing this with a black colored pencil because it can be sharpened pretty well, and I found it more convenient to do those details in the ear with a black colored pencil. I talked about this many times before, but even for my black and white drawings I use mixed media, so it's not only charcoal, even though most of it is charcoal. I also do a lot of work with a black colored pencil and a graphite pencil. So if you want to give a name to my approach or my method, it would be a 3-pencil method because I'm using charcoal, black colored pencils and graphite pencils, but also in addition to that I use other tools. Of course, I also like to use vine charcoal because of how easily blended it is, and for some other reasons, obviously. I'm also using this pencil eraser to further clean up the edges of the face and add some more highlights on the nose and the cheekbones and things like that. And I'm working on his mustache and the lips, which are very important if I want to achieve likeness, and I want his teeth to stand out. And also because of the lighting, there's going to be some interesting shadows both on his face and the neck and the body, so I need to try to capture that as well. And here I'm using some vine charcoal and combining it with a charcoal pencil to shade the arm on the left. And I'm spreading the charcoal a little bit with tortilla. And like I said, if I by any chance just mess up an edge here and there, I can just go back in and fix it, because with vine charcoal that's easy to do. And I want a cleaner edge with his forearm as well, and I want his forearm to be a little bit darker in the middle. And now I'm just starting to add a little more detail to that forearm, hopefully. I can also use a black colored pencil for the edges. Sometimes I start to sketch with a tortillon before I actually move in with a pencil. And now I'm going to do this here under the armpit. I'm going to add some more details to it later. And the studded band around the arm, I'm gonna have to add a few details with a white gel pen to it later, because I want some of those highlights to stand out a little bit more. So a gel pen will be useful here, because sometimes it's impossible to clean up the highlights so that they're completely white. I don't like using a white gel pen too often, but when you use it sparingly, it's a useful tool. I'm trying to add as much detail as possible to this microphone, while at the same time working on the hand that's holding it. This one will be a little bit more complicated because of the positioning of the fingers. and also this chest here, I need to add that in as well. So I can safely cover this part of the background here, because I don't think I'll be smudging it too much. In case you're wondering why I'm apparently using two different types of sticks, I have two kinds of vine charcoal, but they're essentially the same thing. One is shorter and a little bit thicker, the other one is longer and thinner, like a twig, but it's the same thing. It's vine charcoal, it's natural soft charcoal. Again, as with the other hand, I'm using a black colored pencil for some of the details and for some of the edges, because this part is pretty complex, so I just think that if I try to do this with a charcoal pencil, it would be a lot more difficult for me to get clean edges and well-defined smaller shapes like these fingers. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's easier to do it with a black colored pencil. And I actually used a ruler for this microphone stand here, which I don't normally do, but I thought, why not create a relatively straight line. But it's not a very important detail. I think the focus will mostly be his face and hand gestures. So I just keep covering more of the background on the right as well, now that I know that I won't be going back to work on the face and the hands as much, so there's no danger of smudging it. But I will have to work on the shirt very soon. So I first added a little bit of both charcoal and graphite to the shirt and spread that around with a Q-tip and a brush, just to create a little bit of light value, because I can't leave it completely white, because if I did that it would end up looking flat and I couldn't be able to show these folds in the shirt. So first I did a little bit of that light tone, and then I added some of these darker tones, and then I pulled some highlights with a pencil eraser, as you can see. So now the shirt looks pretty realistic. And this studded belt was also pretty complex, because I not only had to add these shiny details, I also had to shade inside them. And again, I used a white gel pen for just a few touches here and there where I felt like I couldn't get clean edges and enough contrast for my highlights, but most of it was me just using the white of the paper, which is what I definitely prefer. So I'm going to do the same thing with the pants as I did with the shirt, because they are also a very light color, almost white, or just off-white, I'm not entirely sure, but I am going to shade them lightly and then pull some darker details like folds in around the groin area and thighs, and a shadow here in between the thighs. And then once that is done, also I need to add a few of these seams so I want more detail. And once I'm done with that, I can just pull a few highlights and make those folds stand out a little bit more to give them a little bit more of a 3D look. So here, as you can see, my main subject is done, and I just need to finish the work on the background and clean up around that microphone stand, and that'll be it. By the way, the camera that I'm using is an iPhone camera which is mounted on a microphone stand. So in case you are wondering what I'm using for my top-down recording of videos, now you know. And it's very important to create a clean edge here. And you can see how I'm using my brush. When I want a clean edge, I point the brush towards the edge, and that way I don't spoil the edge. I'm going to have to draw my signature here with a pencil eraser before I spray the drawing with a fixative, because if I sprayed it with a fixative first, I would only have the option of drawing a black signature with a black colored pencil or charcoal pencil, but this way, if I have to erase, then I have to draw my signature first. The drawing here is finished and sprayed with a fixative. This is what it looks like. I'm going to move it a little bit so that you can see all of it. By the way, the size is 9 × 12 inches. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that you can see more of the detail and the shadows on the face and the body. That'll be all for this video and this drawing of Freddie Mercury. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to check out my other videos. Bye for now.